I am by forever drug addict infinitist. I have absolutely no pleasure in stimulants, in which I sometimes so madly indulge. It has not been in the pursuit of pleasure that I have perilled life and reputation and reason. It has been the desperate attempt to escape from torture and memories, from a sense of insupportable loneliness and a dread of some strange impending doom. A paranoid is someone who knows a little of what's going on. If you're going to kick a 40 in the teeth, you might as well use 2 feet. I don't do drugs, I am drugs. Imagine a society that subjects people to conditions that make them terribly unhappy, then gives them the drugs to take away their unhappiness. Science fiction is already happening to some extent in our society. Instead of removing the conditions that make people depressed, modern society gives them antidepressant drugs. In effect, antidepressants are a means of modifying an individual's internal state in such a way as to enable them to tolerate social conditions that he would otherwise find intolerable. When you smoke the herb, it reveals you to yourself. They lie about marijuana, tell you pot smoking makes you unmotivated. Lie. When you're high, you can do everything you normally do just as well. You just realize that it's not worth the fucking effort. There is a difference. Reality is just a crush for people who can't handle drugs. People use drugs, legal and non-legal, legal and illegal, because their lives are intolerably painful or dull. They hate their work and find no rest in their leisure. They're estranged from their families and their neighbors. It should tell us something that in healthy societies, drug use is celebrative, convivial, and occasional, whereas among us it is lonely, shameful, and addictive. We need drugs apparently because we have lost each other. We had 2 bags of grass, 75 pellets of mescaline, 5 sheets of high powered blotter acid, a salt shaker half full of cocaine, and a whole galaxy of multicolored uppers, downers, screamers, laughers, and also a quart of tequila, a quart of rum, a case of Budweiser, a pint of raw ether, and 2 dozen meals. Not that we needed all that for of a trip, but once you get locked into a serious drug collection, the tendency is to push it as far as you can. There's a phrase, the elephant in the living room, which purports to describe what it's like to live with a drug addict, an alcoholic, an abuser. People outside such relationships will sometimes ask, how could you let such a business go on for so many years? Didn't you see the elephant in the living room? And it's so hard for anyone living in a more normal situation to understand the answer that comes close to the truth. I'm sorry, but it was there when I moved in. I didn't know it was an elephant. I thought it was part of the furniture. There comes an aha moment for some folks, the lucky ones, when they suddenly recognize the difference. If you want to understand society, take a good look at the drugs it uses. And what can this tell you about American culture? Well, look at the drugs we use. Except for pharmaceutical poison, there are essentially only 2 drugs that Western civilization tolerates: caffeine from Monday to Friday to energize you enough to make you productive, member of society, and alcohol from Friday to Monday to keep you too stupid to figure out the prison that you are living in. I was more addicted to self-destruction than to the drugs themselves. Something very romantic about it. Whether you sniff it or smoke it or shove it up your ass, the result is still the same addiction. Drugs are a waste of time. They destroy your memory and your self-respect and everything that goes along with your self-esteem. A drug is not bad. A drug is a chemical compound. The problem comes in when people who take drugs treat them like a license to behave like an asshole. It's only in drugs or death will see anything new, and death is just controlling. I'm glad mushrooms are against the law because I took them one time, and you know what happened to me? I laid in a field of grass green grass for 4 hours going, oh my God, I love everything. Yeah, now if that isn't a hazard to our country, how are we going to justify arms dealing when we realize that we're all one? People are strange. I'm not drunk, just a little stoned. Whoa, selling my soul would be a lot easier if I could just find it. I automatically assume people won't like me, so I don't talk to them unless they approach me first. I can't become a part of a crowd because I can't get past that feeling that I don't belong. I didn't realize there was a ranking, I said. Sadie frowned. What do you mean, a ranking? I said. You know what's crazier than that? Than what? Well, sure, there is, Sadie said. She sat back in her chair. First, you have your generic depressives. They're a dime a dozen and usually pretty boring. Then you got your bulimics and the anorexics. They're slightly more interesting, although usually they're just girls with nothing better to do. Then you start getting into the good stuff, the arsonists, the schizophrenics, the manic depressives. You can never quite tell what those will do. And then you've got the junkies. They're completely tragic because chances are they're just going to go right back on the stuff when they're out of here. Junkies are at the top of the crazy chain. Sadie shook her head. She says suicides are. I looked at her. Why? Anyone can be crazy, she answered. That's usually just because there's something screwed up and you're writing, But suicides is a whole different thing. I mean, how much do you have to hate yourself to just want to wipe yourself off? It's a good thing most people bleed on the inside, or this would be a gory, blood-smeared earth. There was a thing called heaven, but all the same, they used to drink enormous quantities of alcohol. There was a thing called the soul and a thing called immortality, but they used to take morphia and cocaine. 2,000 pharmacologists and biochemists were subsided in a A.F. 175. 6 years later, it was being produced commercially, the perfect drug, euphoric, narcotic, pleasantly hallucinant. All the advantages of Christianity and alcohol, none of their defects. Take a holiday from reality whenever you like and come back without so much as a headache or a mythology. Stability was practically assured. You realize the people that take drugs because it's the only real personal adventure left to them in their time constrained, law and order, property lined world. It's only in drugs or death we'll see anything new, and death is just too controlling. After a few months in my parents' basement, I took an apartment near the state university when I discovered both crystal methamphetamine, and the conceptual art. Either one of these things are dangerous, but in combination, they have the potential to destroy entire civilizations. Drugs are a bet with your mind. The essence of capitalism is to turn nature into commodities and commodities into capital. The live green earth is transformed into dead gold bricks with luxury items for the few and toxic slag heaps for the many. The glittering mansion overlooks a vast sprawl of shanty towns wherein a desperate, demoralized humanity is kept in line with drugs, television, and armed force. Drug misuse is not a disease, it is a decision. Like a decision to step out in front of a moving car. You would call that not a disease, but an error, a judgment.